Hello and welcome. This is the Lights Out podcast.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lights Out F1 podcast. I'm Patrick,
I'm Claire.
and today we're going to be talking about games, particularly Formula
F1 2022.
F1 2022. So, for those of you who don't know, F1 has a game. They actually have two games. They actually have three if you really put on or four.
Sure.
But we'll be focusing on F1 Manager and F1 2022. So, Claire, you're here today.
I am here today.
Can you tell me about your experience so far with F1 22?
Yeah, okay, so I don't play a lot of games, right? I have a PS5, but I don't really like playing with controllers.
Mm-hmm.
So I started playing it on the controller and I was really, really bad. Really, very bad. But then for Christmas, I got a steering wheel and pedals so I could play F1 2022 and it be more like how the what? Immersive, yeah, like real.
Yeah.
More like how the League gamers.
Yeah.
Do it.
And did it take you some time to acclimate to it, get some speed on it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
You want to tell them about the gap that I closed?
Yeah. So we first started playing with each other after she got her steering wheel. I'd been playing it for about 3 months before that, I'd say. Which for me, I got it went off sale, went on sale a week later, but whatever. So I started playing that basically like 2 weeks after it came out. I've been playing games on controller for the longest time. When I play on Xbox, I play on my PC now. And yeah, so I've been racing all of the cars. I've tried a bunch of different variations on different tracks, and here comes Formula Virtue.
Here comes Louie. Lou, get up here.
There he is.
Hey, buddy. You got a bone? Well, you got a bone?
There's some damage. Alright, so, yeah, so I've been playing for a good minute. I think the career mode is super immersive, and the AI are very difficult. But I think they're a very good measure of skill. I think I started off on the beginner level AI, like they have them set at 19%. And then I moved my way up to, I think right now my match is at like that 91% is where I have a hard time. 87% is where they start to qualify me, but I can still make a gap after I get first place. 91% I can't get first place.
Yeah.
But when Claire started about 3 months after me with the steering wheel, I think it was about an 8-second gap when we first started, and that was December 25th for Christmas, and then now, 2 months later, almost.
Yeah.
Claire is within 1 second of me during qualifying, and
or out qualifying.
Or out qualifying. It depends on the car, really. So recently we started a career mode where I started off with Williams and she started off in a Ferrari, and she took the first win of the season.
You get to choose where you get to go, so why not choose?
Yeah. So
have
for
the
those
best
of you
car
who
to
don't,
start out.
yeah. So
You're just
don't
being a
know,
weirdo and
anyways,
picked Williams.
I picked my favorite team.
Yeah.
Understandably. But so.
Well, because backtrack. We played a different career together. We were on the same team and we were on McLaren, so I decided to switch it up. Keep Danny Rick and Lando in the McLaren where they should be. And I kicked Carlos out, which I feel a little bad about.
Yeah, he'll probably make a comeback in our next season. But so for those of you who don't know, in the career mode of F1 22, you can choose the team that you go to, and the performance is based on how much upgrading you have. And obviously, the teams can upgrade more than other teams. So Williams doesn't have very much money, so they can't do as much research, and they have underdeveloped facilities, so they can't develop nearly as many parts. Right now, we are at a point where it's like Max and Lewis at the end of 2021, where we have like a 1 point gap between the two of us. That was after a tedious season. I didn't think I would ever lose a race to you, but
you've lost many.
I've lost 5.
5 races to me.
Out of 10. We only do a 10 race season because obviously doing 16 or 22 races in a season is quite long, which I can understand why the drivers would be tired at the end of the season now.
Definitely.
So now that you've played F1 22 and you've played most of the tracks, which ones do you think are justifiably the most difficult?
They're all very difficult in their own
Okay,
ways.
let's start off with we'll go with the ones that people always complain about because they are
Okay.
something worth complaining about. Street circuits, right? We have Monaco.
Oh
We
my god,
have
Monaco, I cannot drive.
yes, we have
We took it off
Monaco.
the
We have Singapore.
calendar.
I don't think you've raced in Jeddah yet.
Yeah, no, we have.
We have.
I like Jeddah actually.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, Jeddah is fun in my opinion. It's probably the most fun street circuit. That being said, there
Montreal
is Canada and
fun.
Montreal, which I didn't actually know were a street circuit for a while. I thought there was actual tracks, but now that I know, I guess whatever. Personally, I am a fan of street circuits. It's a very, very high level of skill to drive on.
Definitely.
Yeah, the braking zones, like how you do your setup and everything like that. Like I think also Claire hasn't quite learned how to do her own setup yet, but
I have a problem with numbers and I don't like doing it myself.
yeah,
I
so
get so confused.
I've tried out so many different setups on so many different tracks. I can understand why now, like the engineers and the drivers, like when they're talking about like the car balance, like the things that they're talking about, it's like, yo, like this is actually really cool. The amount of time that goes into finding like that pinpoint setup that you like, you're just not being able to find it. So like where George would take one of those ones where it feels like 70% okay compared to when Lewis was doing more extreme ones where it was like 20% okay or 90% okay. So I can understand why now like George is doing better in the first half of the season. But yeah, outside of that, let's go with like old time circuits like Spa, Silverstone, Monza.
Yeah, basically the most fun thing about these circuits is like sometimes you're in the rain and it makes it like 100,000 times harder. Like, but it and you really get to see like the different elevation changes. Like when you're going up a hill, you don't really notice it that much when you're watching it on TV.
Yeah.
But driving it, it's like insane.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting ones is a lot of times you'll hear on TV about Spain, the blind. I think blind turn 9, where you're going gear 6 into 7 into possibly 8 by the end of the turn, and you're going uphill, so you can't see where the apex of the turn is. And they have that really large gravel trap there, and I'm like, okay, I can see why they call it that now, because if you don't have like in F120, so you can have a racing line on, which I'm pretty sure they've actually had in most of the Formula games. But I started playing with the racing line off, and that is the most terrifying thing, especially when you're going uphill into like a flat corner where you can't see the apex. That is terrifying. Okay, so now that you played the game, and you've obviously watched a lot of F1, comparing the real tracks to the ones we raced on, which one has to be your favorite for both at the same time?
For both, I think it still has to be Spa. I love going up Eau Rouge.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Spa's one of my favorite tracks. I mean, and Montreal. I have a lot of fun driving on F1 2022, and I like watching that race as well. What about you?
For me, I've always been a big fan of Zandvoort, even though, on TV it's kind of hard to overtake on it. But I think we talked about this in the last one.
I just don't like it as a track to watch on TV because the fans and Max and the whole weekend thing.
Yeah.
But I like driving it.
Yes.
It was a really cool experience.
Understand about the fans. I don't know. Like, obviously, you're not the largest Max fan, and I prefer to say I'm pretty unbiased about it, but I just like the track, and, like, I think the cameras don't do justice to it.
They really don't.
It is wild how, like slanted those turns are.
The banking, yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool to drive on.
Yeah, it really is.
Outside of that, driver moves don't happen very frequently in F122. A lot of times we see some strange mix-ups, like if you kick out, like, in our previous one, we kicked out Lando from McLaren, and he ended up going to Aston Martin.
Yeah.
And so one of the interesting things about it was, like, even in an Aston Martin, or not even in an Aston Martin, I think the game overemphasizes, like, the level of the car.
Oh, yeah, car diff is everything in this game.
Yes. Because, like, in my opinion, if Lando was actually put into a 2022 Aston Martin, I feel like he could still, be in a points contention place most races.
He did horrible in our simulation.
He scored 2 points during an entire season, like a 10-race season, which I don't think is represented well. But now we can compare this to F1 Manager.
I haven't played it a lot,
yeah.
But I've heard you talk about it. So
yeah, so F1 Manager, for those of you who don't know, it's essentially taking all aspects of a team principle in F1 and putting them into practice. where you have to manage, board concerns, your finances for the season, your car upgrades, your driver changes, your staff upgrades, things like that. Um, and one of the biggest things I realized is how much team principals actually have on their plate. Now, obviously, team principals don't have that all to themselves, but it's still like them overseeing a lot of it. So picking the direction the car needs to go is a really big thing, but that's expensive because that means you have to spend on every single research part you do or every single development you do for the car. Um, Focusing on whether or not you're going to focus on your car for future regulations or next year, or focusing on developing the car more and more and more this year. And then whether or not you're just not going to do any upgrades at all, or like one or two upgrades like Ferrari and Alfa Romeo did, where they focused on upgrading their facilities, which is, as obviously, a game doesn't represent it very well, but for reference, it takes about 6, 7, or 8 times as much money to upgrade a facility than it does to upgrade one part of a car. Which, I mean, it is an entire building.
Yeah.
So, fair.
Makes sense.
But the time it takes to upgrade those part of the building, it's like 90% of the season. And so you don't even get to put it into practice. One of the most interesting things is how hard it is to get drivers out of their contracts, which now I can understand why, it was such a big war to get Danny off his contract, or why it's so hard to get these like people, like the big names, out of their contracts, even if they might not be, enjoying their time there. Like, even if Mercedes were to say, "Hey, Lewis is retiring today," and they want to buy, like, let's say Lando or Charles out of their contract, that is ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
And so I tried buying. I did it in U.S. dollars because I'm not sure how to do it in pounds or euros or whatever other currency. But I tried buying Lando out of his contract to go to Aston Martin. And there's two things that they always focus on. One is actually how much you're willing to offer and, the bonuses they get for whatever position. And the second thing is how much they actually think your team can do. So Aston Martin has been P7 for 2 seasons in a row now. And one of the biggest things that I found is a lot of the upper drivers, even if you're willing to offer them like these massive contracts and you're able to buy them out of their contracts, they won't come to your team solely for the fact that they don't think you're good enough.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, Fernando is only going to Aston Martin, I believe, because of the big paycheck he's getting.
Yeah. So, do you think that Fernando, obviously the paycheck, but do you think he actually sees value in the Aston Martin car for next year?
Sure. I mean, they've been upgrading their factory, right?
Yeah. I think the new Intel is supposed to come through in May.
Okay. So, I mean, he must see something.
Yeah.
Or he just really messed things up at Alpine and he was like, I can't stay here.
Yeah.
So, one of the two.
Yeah, I think.
From the ladder.
Okay, so on that topic, Fernando Alonso was under the management of, I forget the name of him, but a certain driving manager. He used to be a team principal. He's banned from the sport now.
Oh.
Yes.
What did he do to get banned?
A lot.
Oh,
that I don't quite remember. But a lot of people are saying that the way that everything went down with Fernando's timing of his leave, Oscar Piastri signing to McLaren, and the whole contract situation, they're saying that he could have been involved in the back of it because of his closeness to Alonso and that whole situation. Because obviously we know, Alonso's move to Renault and his move out of Renault were because of said person, who I for some reason can't remember the name of. But now, like, this is like saying that his handprints are like all over it because he, like, Fernando left on what was supposedly, obviously this is all speculation because we don't know the actual contract, but Oscar Piastri had a contract essentially with Alpine where people thought it said that he can leave if he doesn't have a seat by X date, and X date was, I think, was July 30th, and that's the exact day that Fernando Alonso left Alpine for Aston Martin. And the exact same day, Alpine announced Oscar Piastri, and that exact same day, Oscar Piastri said, "I'm not driving for Alpine next year." And so there's a lot of ambiguity there, which is why there was that big tug of war. So I think it was one of the most interesting things. I was like, this is quite a bit of conspiracy going on, and I mean, it makes sense because he's done, like, said person has done this in the past, and so I'm like, is this actually like something that's been going on? Because he said even like,
well, he's banned from the sport.
He's banned from the sport, and he himself personally said he doesn't want anything to do with the sport. But at the same time, you're like, nobody who's been in the sport for that long and made a man win 2 world championships would just get away from the sport.
You're saying that people think he's still helping Alonso.
Well, I think he
And
orchestrated the situation.
Piastri.
Yes. He also was somebody who helped Mark Webber, who is
Okay.
Oscar Piastri's
Oh, that
yes.
makes sense because
Yeah.
he is managing Oscar
Oscar,
Piastri.
exactly. And so a lot of people are saying Mark Webber could be tied into this too because he was also helped by X person.
If anything, he's like their back channel doing this. Like,
yeah. So while he may not be directly in F1 or like involved with it, this could be something.
At least he's getting like tips from.
Yeah.
Like he's helping with like the relationship between them.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Wild, right?
That is wild, and that has nothing to do with F1 2022.
That is true. My bad.
Or F1 manager.
yeah.
But wow, that is cool.
So another interesting thing we found is, well, I found out about Oscar Piastri first off. In one of my solo careers, I had Oscar Piastri as a teammate for 2 seasons, and he is not performing. Obviously, it's not representative because there's no growth in the driver seemingly, but in our season where we played together, Felipe Drugovich gets signed to Alfa Romeo in 2025.
Dude, he goes ham. He just like literally just cars up the field. He's like P3 as a rookie.
Yeah. So every race in Alfa Romeo P3, every race or every qualifying, he's like P3, P4, and he's like up there. And I'm like, okay, first off, where is this coming from? And then we get to the race, and he's just chilling in P3, like usually like a good gap to the next person too.
And they just made him like OP and like for no reason.
I'm just like, I've literally never seen this before. I tried signing him an F1 manager.
Mm-hmm.
He's very cheap. Most of the F2 drivers you can sign like $1 million contract and they'll take it, unless it's like somebody who is also a reserve driver. But like Tio Portier, you can give him like a $2 million contract and they'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
And they develop unbelievably fast, especially like drivers like Jack Doohan, Oscar Piastri, Felipe Drugovich, Federico Vesti, which I don't think is so much talked about enough. And there's somebody I'm thinking of, but I can't. Whatever.
Lawson?
No, I don't remember the name of the person.
Okay.
But you sign them, and everybody, like every driver, no matter what age they are, has this thing called like an experience multiplier, where every race they'll get a certain number of experience points. If they get an FP1 session, then they'll get experience points, so on and so forth. And the younger drivers get like a massive multiplier, like a 1.71 times, where like older drivers, like say Danny Rick, Lewis Hamilton, theirs is in the 0.9s or 0.8s, where they don't really get any experience points because obviously they're pretty stuck in their ways, if you can really say that much. You can develop them however you want. Felipe Drugovich has a really high overtaking stat and a really high pace, like his accuracy, which is just his ability to follow the racing line.
Yeah.
And so like this is what they're translating to F122. Like when he gets to F1, this is like his stats are probably the most balanced thing I've ever seen. I think it's very they did a very good job because I went back and watched a lot of the highlights from F2 this season, and his drives. First off, the fact that he won with I think 3 or 2 races to spare the championship, amazing.
He needs a spot somewhere.
Yes, I think he's in the Aston Martin driver reserve now.
Yikes.
Yeah, not the best place to be.
Best place to be.
Yeah, because I mean, there's one seat to fight for. Because I don't think
Lance going.
Yeah, but yeah, so I think the manager does a very good job at like showing what the drivers can do, and I think it actually pinpoints a lot of the strengths and weaknesses of drivers. I'll keep it away for a sec so I can.
Yeah. Literally, I learned so much from playing the video game. It's insane. They give you so much information about the cars, the drivers, how to upgrade, what you can upgrade, what it does, how long it'll take. So like all of that, it's like so immersive into like what actually goes on, and like you get to control like so much of it. And I've actually learned like what the different practices are for. Learning that you should do like development boost like programs and like what they can focus on in different free practices.
Yeah. So one of the more interesting things is that F1 on their official app released a guide to F1 2023. I think it was back in.
For the video game or for the season?
The season.
Okay.
So they explain what each of the free practices for what the sprints are, how the new qualifying is done, which we'll get to in a little bit, and how like race format. And so they explained the free practice, and I was like, this makes sense because Free practice one, they said, is usually made to test any new developments that they have, and that's where you do all the longer running, which is why they give you a set of hard and medium tires
Yeah.
for it.
In the game, they allocate tires to you.
Yes. And then second session is usually used for, actual running of the parts you will use during the race. So day one is basically like, here are the new parts, we're going to use them. If not, here are the old parts, then we'll use these. And obviously, it also gives the FIA time to look at the parts, make sure that they're up to right. Cause like, Mercedes were going to bring a new front wing one race, and then they tested it out. FIA had to make changes to it, and then they were allowed to use it in CODA. So things like that, and then
Sorry to interrupt, but playing the game, I've learned how hard it is to do a freaking race start.
Oh my gosh, yes. We'll get to that in a sec, though.
Okay, but that's like CODA with George.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I'm like, okay, how can that happen? But then I'm like, oh yeah, that can happen so easily. So that makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that the drivers actually don't get in as much trouble.
Yeah, no, first lap incidents, like I will in the future go forward and be like so lenient on them about it because it can happen so easily.
Yeah. So and then practice 3, of course, is used for your shorter runnings, prepping you for qualifying, and that's what they say on the app, and I'm like, that makes sense because during free practice 3 in the game, they give you just 2 sets of soft tires. So basically, like, hey, do some soft tire running, see how fast you are, and yeah, so doing that in the game, trying to apply that into like how you do your practices. Usually, we I have a piece of blue hair like on my face. In the game, usually I do all my long running, like trying to get all my programs done, make sure we get the development boosts and whatnot. Development boosts are essentially, this will make your research cheaper because it essentially shortens the time it takes for them to do the research since they have the live data. Practice 2, usually we sim.
Yeah.
And also any practice in the rain, we usually sim.
Definitely. If the race isn't in the rain.
Yes.
If the race is in the rain, then we'll do a practice in the rain.
Yes. I think one of the most interesting things about the game is it does a really good job at with changeable conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Changing from wet to dry or dry to wet. They try to do a good job of showing you when you should come in and when not.
Yeah.
Making the mistake of coming in a lap early or a lap late has been detrimental multiple times.
Yes, for sure. Also on the screen, it'll tell you how your pace will be affected if you get on different tires.
True.
It'll tell you if it'll you'll be faster on these tires or not, or if you'll be slower.
Yeah. I think one of the other interesting things that they do a good job at applying is we use anti-lock brakes, so our brakes don't lock up. We also use traction control, which are 2 things that the drivers don't have.
Yeah.
I tried playing a race without anti-lock brakes and without traction control in Bahrain. Terrible idea. It is so easy to lock your brakes up in a hot track, and that's why we see so many driver lockups on those types of tracks. Like Bahrain is very clear to see, especially down the main straight, since your tires are getting really, really hot really fast, and then you're trying to hit the brakes and stop all the way down to gear 2 or 1 from maximum gear 8, and you have to brake all the way down there. It's very easy to lock your brakes up, so you can see why the braking zones would be so much longer compared to how they are in the game. I also think one of the more interesting things is that in the game, it's very very easy to go faster than the fastest time in real life.
Oh yeah.
They host events, online events where you can
The game, the e-game, so you do it professionally for tournaments and stuff. Do they have the anti-lock brakes?
Oh, they have all of the assist off.
They have all the assist off?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So they have in the game.
I'm sorry. One more thing.
Yeah.
I saw a TikTok of day in the life of a F1 racer, for the girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I was like, who is this?
Uh-huh.
And her boyfriend was an esports racer.
Yeah.
I was like, what? It's not the same thing, but it's cool.
Well, okay. So one of the cool things is that the race.
No, your boyfriend isn't an F1 driver.
Well, okay. One of the cool things about.
Was it for the game? Keep going. I'm sorry.
One of the cool things about the F1.
So Patrick's here today.
Alright. And that's the end of the podcast, guys. I'm just kidding. So, one of the cool things about the esports drivers is that their driving experience that they get behind the um, virtual experience, I guess you'd say, is applicable in real life. And we got to see that with Lucas Blakely, who he won the F122 World Championship this year with McLaren Shadow. And then him and Jarno Opmeer, who won 2 years back to back with Mercedes in 2021 and 2020, they got first and second place in a tournament that had them competing with
the Race of Champions.
Yes, they got to compete in the Race of Champions, which
Oh,
is like interesting because
near
this is
near
real
one of
life
the
racing.
poles. They raced like near one of the
Yeah,
poles.
and they got to race against like real life drivers. Like,
Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah,
Mick Schumacher.
yeah, well, they didn't get to race
Mika
against him. Mika Hakkinen.
Hakkinen.
They beat Mika Hakkinen.
Yeah.
I was like, that is wild. Lucas Blakely beat
Judy
Mika
Chadwick
Hakkinen.
was there as well.
She was, yeah. Sebastian Vettel was there.
Yeah,
Mick Schumacher got actually second place there.
yeah. That's Libby barking. Sorry.
Hey, bud. Hi. But yeah, so it's kind of cool to see like how their esports experience translates to real life driving.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that a lot of people don't know about what the type of computers that they drive on is actually they drive on things that are basically equivalent to like a simulator in F1.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, those things are mad expensive. I don't know if anyone's seen like watched the interviews for Ferrari drivers, no esports drivers, but they literally drive in the Ferrari HQ and what looks like the simulators.
Exact same things.
Yeah, it's crazy. Minus like the giant circle room, of course, but they drive in what is in essence an entire F1 simulator. It's kind of cool.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
If anyone, sorry, I was just interrupting you.
Oh, okay.
If anyone watching is like able to go to London or something, there's that new F1.
The F1 exhibition is
arcade.
Yeah, it's an arcade.
Arcade where they have a bunch of like lower, like close to being like simulator type things where you can race.
Yeah, 50.
They have 50 of them.
I think it's 50.
And you can also like eat and drink and stuff.
Yeah. It's essentially like an F1 gaming bar.
It's
really
so cool.
And so
I wish they would expand. It's in London. It's in London.
Yeah. They had an F1 exhibition in Madrid where they showed off the.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's not a gaming center. It's they showed art and cool murals and whatnot of like a bunch of different F1 drivers and races and whatnot. Some fans submitted some professional artists and whatnot. Those were really cool. I looked at some of the pictures from it and I was like, this is wild.
I'm gonna have to look those up then.
Yeah. Someone did a comparison of like what the game cars look like versus the cars in real life and like iconic images that they use in real life. Like I think one of the main ones was when you see the cars going over the hill in Austin, you saw the giant Chilean flag in the background. You were there for that.
The what flag?
I think it was a Texas flag or a Chilean flag, one of the two.
Why would it be the second one?
I don't know. There's a giant flag. It's huge. You can't miss it.
It's an American flag or a Texas flag?
One of the
Texas state
It
flag.
wasn't an American flag.
Did you say Chilean?
Yes.
Oh, in Coda?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, it's a giant flag in the background.
It must have been the Texas state flag with a star.
I don't know what the Texas state flag looks like.
Are you American?
No.
That okay. You are.
There's a giant flag in the background. Anyway,
it's not. It's not a.
It's a flag. Just let me get here.
It's a Texas state flag.
Okay, whatever. There's a Texas state flag in the background. Gigantic. You can't miss it. The car going over the hill. The flag in the background. In the game, there's no flag in the background.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, like
they should just
if you go on broadcast mode and watch people race Dakota, there's no flag in the background. And they have like the exact same views. So I mean, the height's the same. The whole thing is the same. The only thing that's different is the flag.
No flag.
No flag.
That's disappointing. They should put it in 23.
Yeah.
Hey, EA Sports, put it in your game.
Don't get too hopeful.
They're not gonna see it probably. Most likely.
One of the other things that I noticed is that a lot of the struggles that the drivers face in real life aren't in the game, and a lot of things that we face in the game aren't in real life.
Yeah.
There are some curves that are mighty high in the game that are not that high in real life, and the high curves in the game obliterate the cars.
They really do.
I think one of the most notable ones is Hungary. That chicane halfway through the track, it's flat in real life. Well, not flat, obviously, like, it still elevates. Yeah. But in the game, it's just it looks like a wall. And if you go over
Yeah.
it or at like the driver's doing in real life rather than around it, you're gonna obliterate the floor of your car. It's horrible.
I mean, they definitely do a good job of like making you feel car damage.
Yes. Like if you take floor damage, you're gonna feel drag.
Yeah.
Whether it's through like vibration through your controller or whether you actually feel it the way you drive. You take radiator damage, or the worst is when you take front wing damage.
Yeah,
Because
definitely. You can't
understeer,
drive it.
oversteer, I didn't understand what Max was saying. There was one track, I think it was Hungary last year actually, where he had a problem with his barge board. That was 2021.
What's a
Sorry.
barge board?
It's what they're replaced with. All right, so we had a camera called. We're talking about barge boards. You don't know what those are.
I guess I don't. Yeah.
So actually, she does know what they are now, because the camera came off after I explained it.
We didn't notice it. Yeah. Anyway,
Anyways,
what's a barge board?
so the barge board is what the side pods replaced.
Okay,
so
cool.
It protected you from accidents. And Max had that problem with the race in Hungary in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
The one that's been on one. Really helping. Came the first one. Worry about.
Yeah. Cool.
Sebastian Vettel took 6th place.
Cool.
Right. So let's see. Which track have you driven the most in F1 22?
I mean, it's got to be Bahrain, just because we
It's the season opener.
kept playing it over and over again.
Yeah.
Or Silverstone.
So why wouldn't you use that? So curious.
Why wouldn't that be the one that we raced at? It could be.
Because we restarted that race.
Okay, yeah, we have restarted that a lot. I wasn't really thinking about restart wise. I was thinking more like how many times. It's gotta be Brazil. It definitely has to be.
We in our current campaign, like I said, we did 1 point apart. So one of our wins was the season, and we keep doing this really fast. Right?
Super bad.
But no, there are points.
Sometimes they're okay.
So it's interchangeable conditions where the rain will stop on lap 13. Now, lap 15 is when you change over to your soft tires. And Claire doesn't have pit assist off. So she just drives as fast as she can.
Did we talk about this in a different episode?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
So she doesn't have pit assist on. We talked about it. And we were driving into the pits. I was in front of her. She was behind me. P1, P2. Switching over to our soft tires. And
I followed him in the pits so fast.
I told her to slow down. I did. But she slid into the back of me, car damage, and they don't fix the front wing if you get it right before you go to the pits.
They don't know how to fix it.
Yeah. And so she's kind of driving around this broken front wing. We had to restart off of that. Mind you, that wasn't my fault. That's how we should keep going. But she wasn't gonna have it.
It's a mutual decision when you restart a race.
It's not mutual.
No, you have to though. Like,
I don't get the choice.
okay.
When we restart races, usually it's because, okay, so a lot of times I'm okay with something, but then something happens to her, and
It happens to you too. Don't pretend like it doesn't.
It happens to you. When I ask for it,
It doesn't.
usually it's for a good reason. With her,
It's a
There's-
stupid reason. It really is.
there's no negotiating it either.
Okay, yes. And I also get distracted super easily. Like if like a notification pops up on like my watch or something, and I look and I'm just like, oh shoot, I'm in the grass. I'm in the gravel. I hit her.
Oh yeah, she doesn't have to watch it. You guys don't see it, but she gets notifications.
Yeah. It is nice. Except for when it messes up my race and then we have to restart.
Yeah, so we know we couldn't be an F1 driver here because she gets distracted easily.
Hey, if I didn't wear my F1, my Apple Watch,
F1 watch?
my
One of those?
I want one.
That'd be sick.
What is that?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah. I could be an F1 driver, I think. Just kidding, I really couldn't.
Should I be Jamie Chadwick?
I love Jimmy Chadwick. I think, yeah, honestly, she should work her way up there. That was just
We're gonna
random.
come off the topic of Jimmy Chadwick. We'll probably just look for this episode. Let's talk about Jimmy Chadwick and females in F1. First off, let's start with Jamie, right?
Mm-hmm.
She has, first off, if I'm not correct,
First off, you said first off like a bunch of times.
I'm sorry. First off, she has a phenomenal career.
Yeah.
3 W Series championships in a row.
Yes.
And
Dude, she dominated that series. So I mean, I think that the next step for her should have been a formula. Yeah. instead of Indy next. I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think she'll get some good play for Andretti in
Yeah.
Indy next, and
So-
the American fans might be a little more open to having a female driver
Yeah.
in Indy.
So in next, it's obviously like the Formula Two of speed instructions.
Sorry.
It's like the Formula Two of IndyCar. So
Yeah.
and she is the only female driver in either IndyCar or Indy next, which used to be nuts. How do you think she does this year?
I think she does good, and she learns a lot
Yeah.
about working in a team and actually being like.
Do you think she moves up to IndyCar after 1 year?
Probably not. Honestly, I think she'll try to make a move back to Formula Series.
Do you think a Formula 3, Formula 2 team would take her if she wasn't in IndyCar?
No, they wouldn't actually. She has been before, but it didn't really move her anywhere. So I really don't know what she's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think that explains the IndyCar. I think they'll probably look at it the same way that they look at, Colton Herta, where, IndyCar champion, super young. Jamie Chadwick is still pretty young. I think she's about 23 or something. So
Yeah.
phenomenal, super talent
Definitely.
as a female. Not trying to discriminate, of course, but comparing that to, male talents that we see in the Formula 2, because there are already a lot of them.
Okay, well, it is hard to tell because the cars are different. Like,
Yes,
you
they are,
need
yeah.
the car to be different for a female.
Yeah.
Like, it's not meant for a female. So
can you see a Formula 3 or Formula 2 team who has substantially less funding making a cockpit specifically for one female driver?
I don't know. That's like, if she could bring in enough money for it, but she has a hard time finding funding, I think.
Interesting. Well, she
might not
She
after
is
this
backed by Williams Driver Academy.
Yeah, but
That might not be that much, really.
that's not.
Okay, so Austin Chadwick beat Formula One Academy. They finally started signing all their drivers.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that's going to turn out? Anything exciting like Formula 3, Formula 4 type exciting, or?
I have no idea. I feel like they've signed some W Series drivers.
Yes.
So I don't know. It's got to be like higher level racing than W Series for it to make any sense to me.
Yeah. Do you think it'll be higher than W Series?
I have no idea what to expect from it.
Yeah, I might be excited for it.
I'm excited for it. I'll definitely watch it.
Okay.
It's got like the backing of F1, obviously, so that's
Yeah.
great. That's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things is that the F1 is devoted to making it like an actual feeder series into the upper echelon of Formula 3.
Yeah, no, I think they should do something in the States.
That would be nice, yes.
I think that's in their future.
One thing I'm interesting about is, let's say a female driver doesn't make it to Formula 3. Right? We'll say Formula 3 just because that's where I would assume the F1 Academy would lead to. I'm going to say the F1 Academy is probably similar like Formula 4 right now. Okay?
Yeah.
Do you think Jamie Chadwick gets to see?
Actually, but wait, why do we need? No, it's because they're gonna let women in. Right? Okay.
Do you think Jamie Chadwick gets a seat coming out of IndyCar or Indy next, before or after a driver from the F1 Academy?
I hope it'd be before because she can't go to the, F1 driver academy. I don't think that would be the right move.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like a downward move.
Yeah.
So I hope that she would go before, but then if F1 is like really on it to get these drivers from their academy to make it a success into the Formula Series as a feeder, then we might see someone from that before Jamie Chadwick because she's not a part of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, sorry, we jumped into this without even describing it. The Formula One Academy is an all-girls series and single-seaters, similar to Formula W, except directly endorsed by F1. And they're saying it should be a feeder series. So it's 5 renowned Formula 3 and Formula 2 teams, each with 3 seats each, so a total of 15 drivers on the grid. Thoughts on the fact that there's only 15 drivers? Why do you think that's a lot?
I think it's enough for a first year.
Okay, so do you think that, depending
If
on
they
how
can-
first year goes, they should up the number of teams?
They should up the number of teams. Yeah.
Yeah, because there are some pretty big names there. I think Prima's in there. I think Carlin's in there. I think Virtuosi did not, and they're one of the biggest names in F2. So this might be a case of like the big teams, like the F1 teams, and also some like the bigger F2 teams not being willing to invest in that yet. So I see what kind of talent comes up.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about like why Mercedes isn't involved in it.
Yeah.
Want to expand on that?
Yeah. So I guess the biggest thing. Well, there's two things. One is PR, personal rep, or I guess in this case, company-wide reputation, and also this is something.
Public relations, PR scheme.
Also personal. Um,
No, it's not.
Whatever.
Sorry. Not sorry.
I'm sorry.
Keep it in. Keep it in. He needs to be held accountable for his words.
Whatever. Okay. So, this is also something that could stand against female drivers as a whole. Because I think that right now the biggest thing with female drivers is the first one that's going to make it onto the grid. People are going to treat it like it's the end all or be all for women drivers.
I wish they wouldn't, but they probably will.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of how I think people were with Lewis when he first came onto the grid. Being one of the youngest and most talented black F1 drivers, and obviously he's that as a pedestal. But I think people are planning to write off like black drivers because they're like if he didn't perform, which obviously is the case, but if he didn't perform, they're probably going to write him off. And now, he's still the only black driver in the grid, but I think he is an inspiration to other upcoming black drivers, and that's very good to see. There's a young American black driver as well that could be into the series.
Yes. His name is, I can't pronounce it. I couldn't even try. It starts with U.
Yes.
He's super good and super cool. He's winning like a bunch of.
They said he's one of the top 20 young talents to look out for.
For sure. I think he's on Mercedes.
I don't know.
His radar, I don't know.
There's also another person on
But it really does surprise me that there's not another person of color on the grid.
That is true. Most of the people come from pretty renowned places. Great Britain, Monaco, Spain,
Germany,
the U.S. Like just pretty big countries. But even from those large countries, just no real people of color represented.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that they should race on the continent of Africa? And you think that would help?
Like a South African Grand Prix.
Yeah, but South.
Like an Egyptian Grand Prix.
Yeah, an Egyptian one would be really cool. But South Africa, if I'm correct, it's probably one of the whitest countries.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So.
Well, still, the idea of racing on the African continent.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with that is I think a lot of regions in Africa are pretty hot.
Warmest?
Yes. And I think the last thing that they're trying
They have had races in South Africa before. Yeah.
Like, having another really hot Grand Prix.
Yeah.
I mean, it's some, the drivers already complain about some of it. Like, Singapore at night is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Imagine having an Egyptian Grand Prix in the summer.
Or some of the Middle Eastern
races. Yeah, it's so hot. But, yeah, so back to the topic, though, I think people were ready to write off black drivers as a whole, so Lewis showed everyone that just because you're a collaboration doesn't mean that you're a bad racer.
Obviously, that makes sense to me, but, I mean, the world is the way it is.
Yes. But they are using, he is using his pedestal as, the greatest driver ever to, promote the idea of racial and gender equality on the grid, in every type of position, whether it be as a reporter, as a driver, as an engineer, all of that. And I think he's doing a really good job. I think other drivers are also doing a good job of keeping that, as a part of their lives.
I know. I think we're gonna miss Seb as someone who promoted things.
Yes.
On the grid.
I think second to Lewis, he was probably one of the most outspoken people on the grid.
Yeah. Hopefully he stays outspoken.
Yeah.
Since he left, I don't see that.
I could see him taking a step back for a little bit though.
No, I just mean about his social causes and stuff.
But back to the topic, Jamie or any female driver making it even to that.
Switch topic, back to Lewis. I'm sorry.
Well, just
No, I want to talk more about Lewis.
Let me finish this part first. I think any female driver pretty much any Chadwick or anyone else, whether it comes from her coming from IndyCar or somebody coming from the Formula One Academy, that is going to be the benchmarker for how people feel about female drivers. And it sucks that that's probably how it's going to be, but
Yeah.
I feel like people will be ready to sing their praises if they win, and ready to absolutely crush all female drivers if they lose.
Sure. I mean, here in America, Danica Patrick has a great reputation. I mean, I feel like it could happen again.
And I feel like one of the biggest problems is something that maybe black drivers are facing too. It's like even if one of them succeeds now, it's like if another one comes along, I feel like that's like the expectation for them to succeed as well.
True.
Back to the American driver, he's 15. Lewis was what, 16 or 17 when he made his FT debut. And
I think he's still racing in Formula 4, European. F3?
Yeah, probably. He was pretty far up the ladder already at 16.
Where's my phone? I'm gonna find his name.
But yeah, so whatever black driver comes next, it's gonna be like, oh, maybe Lewis was just a fluke, right? And like, that's the way it is. I feel like this is like, it doesn't even have to be like racially motivated at this point, although it probably could be.
Look, he's in F4. Pretty much racing.
Oh,
Clare
I was talking about Lewis when he was 16.
Oh, no, I was talking about this guy.
Oh yeah, Ugo. I'm not gonna butcher his name, so I'm not gonna say it. But he's 15, 16? He's 15. No, he's 15 and racing in Formula 4, and I'm very excited to see where he goes. I was trying to talk about something, another one of the top 20 talents to look at. So they looked at a lot of FT drivers. Hopefully you can see that she has a screen darkener. So, but they put out a list of the top 20 young talents to look at. A lot of them were F2, F3 talents, maybe F4. Some big names like Jack Duhan, who's already like everybody knows him. People like Arthur Clare, who might be riding brother. And a lot of the other young drivers. Colapinto's on there. But one interesting driver, they also put their current and previous racing series. Abby Pullen, I think that's her name.
She's English.
Yep. The only female on there, 19 years old, raced, I want to say, no, it was a W Series.
She was in W Series.
Okay, W Series.
But I don't know.
She is not in a seat currently. I'd like to see her in that F1 Academy seat.
Yeah, I mean, she might have been signed.
Yeah.
I know Miria, I'm just butchering her name.
Yeah. I think so far, as far as the app has shown, about 5 drivers have been signed to the series. From a very wide variety of places, actually, which is really nice to see. There's one from Switzerland, I want to say. There's one from the Philippines. Obviously, you have your British driver in there. I don't remember who the other 2 are, but they have, I think 5 of the seats are already filled. And it's nice to see the seats getting filled out. And I found that the app and the reporters doing a really good job at showing off who's getting in there and like really making sure that we know where they're coming from. It's not just some random driver from nowhere. They clearly have some pedigree. Not Switzerland. I think she's Swedish. She raced in Formula W as well.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Don't quote me on that. I'm totally butchering this. But they gave her a background check on the app, and they said she didn't even start off with karting or anything.
Dude, not a background check. Just like a background.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyways, they like gave her whole background and whatnot. She didn't even start off racing in single series.
Where did she start racing?
I don't remember what it was, but like she just decided one day she just wanted to try it. And like I was like, and now she's out here racing the upper echelon of
That's cool.
Racing is awesome. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm really excited to see what the Formula Academy does this year. I think it's going to play a very pivotal role in actually, because I think this is the first real viable step that Formula One and the FIA have taken towards incorporating more females in the grid. And I think that it's going to get a lot of support, but it's also going to get a lot of backlash, especially in countries where they're not fans of, the idea of a female driver in the grid.
Yeah, like when I was talking with Jakob on one of our previous podcasts, like about the FIA president. He was saying that somewhere on like a blog or something. It's like still up there. He doesn't like. That was you. That was you.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't on the podcast.
No, it was not the podcast.
Okay, why don't you tell him?
So, Mohammed Ben Sulayem has a website, and he put up a post one day saying he does not like women who think there's women. That's not word for word, but that's essentially the saying of it. And now that the FIA are seriously reconsidering who they're putting in as the president, obviously I'm a board, so they can't just like put it up, you know. They have to like vote on me personally. For me, like none of the teams.
They've already said like he's already taking a step back from day to day, so that just
Yeah.
means he's on his way out.
Yeah, I mean he's pulling a what's he even at this point? I'll put in my resignation before we do the X.
Probably.
But yeah, so I think finding someone a little more progressive than that, hopefully.
Yeah.
And even if they're not, somebody who maybe isn't as outspoken.
I don't want them to have the views and just not tell us.
Well,
But-
maybe, yeah, you know. But outside of that, I think the FIA needs to seriously reevaluate the values that they have. Because,
Yeah.
you know, putting a rule in place that prohibits the drivers from having politically motivated moves or actions out there is quite frankly a violation of human rights, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know if every country has that right of speech,
They definitely do not.
but I don't think it's viable to cut off an entire, especially with their reputation. Like every driver on the F1 grid has a massive platform, and the idea of cutting off 20 of the world's most known people from having a political statement at all, I don't think that's gonna go over well.
It's not. It's, well, I mean, F1 is like, we're not going to stand for that stuff.
And I think Valtteri Bottas said it best. Like he's like, you know, we have these massive pedestals, and you're gonna stop us from using our pedestals. And it's not like anyone's saying anything bad. Like the only way that what we say is considered bad is if somebody really doesn't like it, and if somebody doesn't like it, that means what they have is what we're saying is probably against what they like. Especially, obviously, we're not going to sugarcoat the fact that some countries still aren't very fond of, like, you know, women in academics, women in, you know, like a super team event. And in that aspect, like, we're still looking for a female driver, and some places aren't happy with that. And so it's like, Valtteri Bottas is basically saying, like, you know, if we're promoting, like, you know, LGBTQ rights or Black Lives Matter or female racers or just female people in general, and saying like, hey, we need more of this, right? Like more representation, showing the world that these people are just as capable as us to do what we do, or like these upward tier jobs that, you know, they've been discouraged from. Why is that a bad thing?
Mm-hmm.
And using our pedestal to show that it's not a bad thing, that it's actually encouraged in this day and age. Well, why are you cutting it off from this?
Yeah, it's messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that got a little serious.
No, yeah. No.
Sorry about that.
This was about
A game.
F1 2022. They do not talk about any of this in the game, by the way. They do not. That is one of the things that you don't deal with in the game that drivers have to deal with in real life.
Yeah, games are amazing after
They give a lot of insight into the technical specs and how things run and
Oh,
things like that.
one interesting thing. Team principals voting on regulation changes. In F1 Manager, team principals get to vote on regulation changes, and we vote for the whole of the team. Every team gets a vote, and then the FIA will rule themselves if it's a 5-5. And likely, I can't understand the argument, because sometimes they'll say, you know, teams that are on their grid get more CFD time, and teams at the top part of the grid get less. Now you would think the teams at the lower part of the grid would say,
Do
hey,
you want to just like say what CFD time?
yeah, it's when tunnel time and like time that you get to do research on the car. Red Bull had 10% less of that this year because they overwent cost cap with 20.
Okay, continue.
But for some reason they make the lower teams say no to that, and the upper teams say yes.
That is weird.
Yes, I don't understand the upgrading part. It's like, no, we don't want more time. We can do it without it. It's like,
Oh, in the game.
yes, in the game.
Oh, okay, yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I don't think it doesn't make sense. Like, if I was lose in real life, and I saw that,
Yes.
like, give me more time. I know I might not be able to have the funding for it, but I still want the research.
For sure.
But yeah,
Should we wrap this up with some final thoughts about the game?
yeah, F122 super fun. I personally can't wait to get my own steering wheel and pedals. I'll probably be slower than Claire.
You definitely will be. Oh, fun. Next.
Fun fact: I don't know how to drive.
He doesn't know how to drive. He does, but he doesn't have his license.
I'm getting there. So she'll definitely be faster than me on the steering wheel and pedals for the long time.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, that's what really matters. The game as a whole, pretty good job at showing us the tracks. What the tracks are actually like, why some tracks are so fun and why some tracks might be difficult, especially some of the tracks where like we complain there's not a lot of overtaking, and now we know why. Street circuits can be fun, might not be.
Monaco is ridiculously hard to drive.
Monaco is ridiculously hard to drive because one mistake, your phone is gone. Two mistakes, your whole car is gone.
You're the wall.
But I think it does a really good job at showing you like what your favorite track could be. I mean, like it also helps you understand how difficult the engineers have it, how difficult the drivers have it, finding the right balance for the car, finding what the car exceeds at and what it's not good at. And I think it's a really good insight into what they face on a day-to-day life. But I think F1 Manager does a really good job of showing you the team principles and how like the little work that they have to do. And obviously CEOs take a lot of the brunt for that as well. In this case, like a lot of team principals are CEOs.
Somewhere, yeah.
But yeah, this thing of work they have is crazy.
Yeah. What do you always say about Toto?
Oh, Toto has more hours of the day than anybody else.
Yeah.
And you can't convince me otherwise.
He is not restricted by the 24 hours that us
that guy has
mere plebes are.
He has 32-hour days.
He must.
Somehow,
Move
he gets to see his family every other week. Still go to race weekends. And I think last year the only race he missed was Brazil. And he was still on Team Radio at home. This man does not operate at normal time. Also, I don't know if you guys know, but he has 4 honorary master degrees. And he teaches classes.
Alright, that's what we're going to wrap up with.
We're going to wrap up on that. How cool is Toto Wolff, the
So
mafia
cool.
boss?
Yeah, well.
Sorry, he's not a mafia boss. He just sounds like one.
He's just a cool guy.
He's just a really good guy. Also, he's jacked. That's all we have for you guys this week. Tune in next week to find out what we're talking about because we don't know yet.
Yeah, we'll have Yaka back on here.
Yeah. Also, Claire's here today, so.
Yeah, I am.
But
I'm
until
always
next
here.
time.
Alright.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Claire. This is the Lights Out F1 podcast.
And we'll see you next time.